As a creative aspect, TV is one of the best things that we do as a species. Along with music and film and books, they bring out the best creative of all of us. They entertain and they bring so much joy to many. They invoke emotion and enable us to feel things that we bury sometimes deep down. That's what this podcast is for. Welcome to A Million Little TV Shows. This is what I call the breakdown while I break down. Each week I will go through a different TV show, a different season of that TV show, and different episodes of that show. And I will break down not only emotions, but I will break down stories from my life, and let you know why these TV shows mean so much to me, and why I believe that they are some of the most important shows out there. This podcast is here to highlight a lot of smaller TV shows, or TV shows that don't really get a platform, because we know of a bunch of TV shows that get a multitude of different podcasts. Ted Lasso, Game of Thrones, The Office, they've all got several podcasts out there analysing all types of different things. But there's not many out there for the little guy, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. So each week I will go through a different show, different seasons, different episodes, and I will go across all different kinds of genres and different countries to bring you what I believe is some of the best TV out there. So I'm glad you're here with me. I'm glad you're here for this journey. And if you've watched the shows before and you wanted to come here and get an analysis on them and have someone go through them and pick out bits that you might have enjoyed, then I'm glad you are here. If, however, you have never watched the show and you just want to come and have someone talk in your ear about different TV shows, I'm glad you are here. But I hope that it inspires some people to go and seek out these TV shows. They deserve to be watched. They were made with love and care, and they are the same as this podcast, made with love and care. I am your host, Mike, and I will take you through every adventure, every horror, every piece of drama, and I hope that you enjoy the show. Hello there, and welcome back to this A Million Little TV Shows podcast. This is now episode 4 of season 10, and as you know, if you follow this podcast, or at least have read the title, you'll know we're going to be going back into Inside Number 9 for the very last time. I have loved this show so much and cannot sing its praises highly enough. As anyone who's followed this podcast also will know, I'm having trouble with these last 3 episodes. The first one's great, and the other 2 I feel let the series down, but I have to give them a second watch, because maybe I'm wrong. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be finishing off this incredible season, this incredible series, and hopefully I will be able to turn my head around and realise how good these episodes are, because I didn't see anyone complaining about these really online, but for me, they just felt like they fell flat. But that's just the opinion of one idiot on the internet. So I'm sure you can tell me what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Anyway, by the end of this podcast, I'll be giving my reflections on the series as a whole, because I think it's been fantastic. There's not been an episode I've really wanted to fault, apart from the obvious, and yeah, I just want to leave this episode on a high, because I have said many times before, I grew up with the League of Gentlemen as a form of entertainment, and now I have Inside Number 9 that's finishing, and I feel like it's probably going to be their last project together for a while. Pemberton and Shearsmith very much probably going to be the end, and obviously Gatiss isn't with them anymore, but is still friends. So it's going to be weird not having TV done with them in it for a while. I'm sure they'll go off and do their own things. I know obviously Pemberton did Taskmaster. I know that Shearsmith is doing Taskmaster next season, so we'll still see them on our screens anyway. But let's get into it, instead of me rambling. So, this is Inside Number 9, Season 9, Episodes 4 to 6, the finale. Episode 4, Control, Alt, Escape. This episode stars Catherine Kelly as Lynn, Callie Tant as Millie, Maddie Evans as Amy, Angus Wright as Dr. Death, Shearsmith as Doug, and Pemberton as Jason. And so we start the episode with Doug. Essentially where they are is a escape room. Doug is the person showing them around and making sure that they're comfortable with the actual room that they're going to be entertained in for the next hour. Jason and Lynn are the parents of this family, with Millie and Amy being the children. They are told that they are in the room of a murderer, a man named Dr. Death. And they are also told that they must collect the clues and work out what is going on to try and get out of this room. Basically, an escape room. I shouldn't need to explain the concept of an escape room to you. I'm sure we're all pretty familiar with them by now. It seems though that this family is going through a tough time. Millie is heading off to university, and Amy is obviously getting older, and she will probably be not far behind her sister. Millie seems a lot bolder and a lot braver than her sister, and she seems scarred by something. She doesn't want to be in this situation, she doesn't want to be in the escape room, and it seems like her father has been dragging her here, there and everywhere when it comes to these fun days out before she heads off to uni. He, of course, is worried because his little girl is moving away. I recently had a friend tell me that he feels with the business that he runs, he has missed out on a lot of the time that he could have been having with his daughter. And so it's understandable that he would be feeling this way. It must be a really worrying time for your kids to be going off to uni. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of parents in the next couple of weeks that are going to be doing the same. As I'm recording this, it's just coming up to the beginning of August, so there is going to be a lot of parents that are going to be losing their children by September when they all head off to uni. And so Millie is very outspoken, especially on this subject of not wanting to be there, but only doing it for her father. It would seem that Jason is a former military man and can be a little bit strict at times, but all in all seems to be a fairly good dad from what we can see. Amy, obviously being the baby of the family, seems to get that special treatment that parents sometimes give their children, especially the younger one. And of course this causes issues between her and her sister. Nothing too bad, just a little bit of jealousy, mainly from Millie. As they're going about the escape room, they manage to actually find behind a bookcase that there is a secret tunnel. Just as they went in, Doug had told them that if at any point Dr. Death turns up, they must hide from him. And so going through this secret tunnel now could be a risk, because we don't know if they'll have anywhere to hide. However, they do so, and the only issue being is that Jason is actually chained to the bed. So Lynn and Amy going through into the next room, and Millie and Jason stay together. Jason tries to talk to his daughter about what's going on and how she's feeling and everything surrounding her going to uni. He obviously doesn't want her to go. He's going to miss her, and he really feels like the time's flown. Earlier on, we saw that Millie had made a comment to her mother about when she's going to tell him. And it would seem that even though this family tend to have no secrets from each other, Lynn is holding something back from her husband. And so Millie and Jason managed to get some time alone. They talk through everything that's been going on, and obviously everything that's going through Jason's mind about his daughter going to university and the time that he's lost and the time that he's going to be missing, and how much he doesn't really want her to go. But also, as a parent, you know that that's probably the best thing for them, to be able to go away, to forge their own life, to do the things that they need to do. As I've always said, my mother has been the person who will tell me, do the things that you need to do to make you happy. She's not one of these people that wants me to be around her all the time, and I'm certainly not that son. I am certainly the son that took her words on board and wanted to go and do things with my life. You know, I've travelled the globe because of my mother's attitude towards life. And so after a few moments, Millie and Jason kind of reconcile their differences and hug it out. Just then Lynn asks if Millie can come through because they need a third hand to help them out, her and Amy. And of course Jason is chained to this bed, so he can't exactly go through. And so Jason, who seems to love this kind of thing, these escape rooms, and they really speak to him logically, and he can kind of just be in a relaxed place with them, it seems. He starts to search for clues. He's trying to find a key to try and get himself out so that he can go and be with his family. It would seem that the key is in the other room, so that's why Lynn, Millie and Amy are trying to solve the puzzle through there. However, he knows that there's going to be other clues, there's going to be other things to search for, so he is currently looking around to try and find some answers. Eventually he manages to find a UV torch, and as he turns the lights off, he starts scanning around the room and finds some handprints on the floor. These handprints then go up against the wall, and he finds a painting, but behind that painting is written the words, "No escape." All of a sudden, the door opens, and as per Doug's rules, if Dr. Death comes into the room, hide. And so that's what Jason does. He hides. He doesn't manage to contact his family, but he hopes they won't come through. And as he is hiding, all of a sudden, he decides to reveal himself. As Dr. Death is about to walk across the room, the door opens. Doug turns on the light and walks in, and he just says, "Oh, I'm sorry, there's been a glitch, blah, 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 blah," and he fixes it. He asks about how the room's going and whether they're enjoying the experience, but Dr. Death is no longer there, and therefore Jason doesn't know whether he is seeing things now. Doug finishes up what he was doing and he leaves, and he tells Jason that Jason can now watch his family on this monitor that's in front of him, and there is a way to communicate with them, which he manages to find in the form of being able to flash a light in the room that they're in. They manage to do more of the room and crack more codes, and eventually end up finding this key. However, in the room where the girls are, all of a sudden a door opens. Dr. Death, wielding an axe, walks in, and Jason realizes that this is no longer a bit of fun. This is now a horror movie. His family are going to be threatened with an axe, and it is very, very real. Jason starts to panic, and he is trying to get out. Obviously, the girls have the key, and the only way to get to them is to be let out. So he needs one of them to come through and help release him. Eventually Millie comes through, and then Amy, and then eventually Lynn. But she is followed by Dr. Death. He is still wielding his axe, and Jason tells the girls to run. He manages to uncouple himself and starts to take on Dr. Death. Just then, we're taken out of the scene, and it's Jason in a hospital bed, hooked up to all types of machines. He's got tape over his eyelids so that his eyelids won't flutter, and it seems that he has been in whatever state this is for a long, long time. We then start to understand what was being said in that room. Millie asked about whether her father was going to find out about what was going on, and Lynn just wanted to enjoy the moment. It seems that he has been in a coma for a long, long time, and it's at this point that we see Doug walk in, and he is a nurse, and he starts looking around, doing vital checks and making sure that everything is okay. And then in walks Dr. Death. Today is the day that they are turning off the machine, and they're going to let Jason pass on. It seems that the escape room that Jason has been in for so long is his mind, and there is no way back for him now. However, back in his mind, we see him tussling and fighting to try and get out of the room. He asks for one last clue from Doug, and Doug tells him, "It's been in your sightline the whole time." Jason looks through, past where Dr. Death is, and sees the exit sign flickering. The only thing that is highlighted the whole time is the X and the 1. Jason realizes that the passcode is the number 9 to get out. He shouts it, and just as he does, we go back to the hospital room. Lynn asks, "Did he just say something?" Just as they're about to pull the plug. It's just then that Jason opens his eyes, and finally he has managed to escape his own mind. This episode is so good, and I was so impressed with it when it came out. Not long before that, we'd actually, for work, we'd done an escape room, so it felt quite poignant at the time when this came out to be able to watch it and go, oh, I've been in that situation. It's a very cool situation to be in. It was a huge twist to find out that Jason was actually in a coma, and a very fun twist on how comas could potentially work. Like, we're never going to know, but potentially, what if it was that? What if you have to go through all these trials and tribulations until your mind is clear and you can finally come back? It'd be a fucking lovely thought, but unfortunately I don't think that's the way it works. But yeah, it's a very fun concept, and I immensely enjoyed this episode. And now for the final 2 episodes. Episode 5, Curse of the Ninth. This episode stars Eddie Marsan as Nathaniel, Natalie Dormer as Lillian, Hayley Squires as Devonshire, Shear Smith as Jonah, and Pemberton as Dickie Van Arse, which really made me laugh when I actually heard it for the second time because I'm childish. But at this point when the season is so far gone and the TV show has been on air for so long now, it feels like that they have stopped trying by this point, And with a name like Dickie Van Arse, it feels like they've just gone, well, we'll just throw anything at the wall and see what sticks. But I did appreciate it. It did make me laugh. But anyway, enough of my childish antics. So, we start with Eddie Marsan's Nathaniel. Nathaniel is a very famous composer, and he is currently in the process of writing something new. However, as he is doing so, he seems distracted in some way. He keeps looking over to the door as if something is about to come through it. Just then he hears a commotion, and as he runs over, he pushes a cabinet in the way of it and tells whatever it is on the other side to leave him alone. Eventually he heads back to his desk, but something, whatever it is trying to get in, and he is terrified of what the consequences are when it does. He takes out a gun. He looks like he's going to shoot whatever comes through that door, but instead turns it on himself and pulls the trigger. We then see Jonah come to the door of this house. It's exactly the same house that Nathaniel was just in. Jonah is a piano tuner, and he has come to inspect the piano that is on the property. Essentially, he is going to tune in the piano and getting it back up to spec. He is greeted by the housekeeper, Devonshire, and she takes him into the room for the piano to be tuned. Devonshire seems very straightforward and doesn't have a lot of time for silly antics. Lillian, however, comes through and she delivers possibly one of the best opening lines in this entire show. While Jonah is actually sat at the piano and trying to figure out what the best course of action is, Lillian walks in and says she hasn't been fingered in years. And like I said, with the name Dickie Van Arse in this, I feel like they just kind of given up. But they were just throwing in all kinds of jokes and daftness. However, while tuning the piano, Jonah actually comes across a key that isn't striking properly at all. It's as if something is inside, and when he opens it up, he finds a scrap of paper. On said scrap of paper, it is musical notes. He can see that this is a piece of work that he's never heard before, and therefore, with it being Nathaniel's piano, it must be a mysterious piece of work. Jonah takes this through to Lillian, and this is where we meet Dickie as well. Jonah tells of this mysterious piece of music and that maybe there could be more, but Lillian dismisses Devonshire, who is trying to eavesdrop on the conversation, and then both her and Dickie tell of the curse of the ninth. Dickie essentially reminds him that a lot of great composers got to their ninth symphony and never completed it because of this curse. And it was something that Nathaniel really believed in. So even though he tried to create some pieces of music that weren't going to be his ninth symphony, that were just classed as something else, at some point he felt like he maybe had cheated, and that whatever the curse was, it was coming for him. However, it is revealed by Lillian that the last piece of music that was ever written by Nathaniel was buried with him, because that is what he wanted. Nathaniel, being such a fan of her husband, tells her that it could be priceless, that potentially whatever this is, this piece of music, it needs to be heard. Lillian, however, doesn't agree with any of this and just believes that it should be left to rest. Devonshire has other thoughts. She knows that he is just hired help, he is there to be paid by the hour, as is she, but she knows that if they get their hands on that work, it could set them up for life. She essentially, with the help of very heavy clues and very heavy-handed insinuations, tells him that he should dig up the body and this manuscript with this music in it. Jonah seems unsure what to do, but eventually he knows she's right. And so that very night he heads over to the house and heads to where Nathaniel is buried in the yard. He starts to dig up the grave and manages to find the manuscript. Here is when Devonshire comes out and exclaims that she can't wait to start her new life because she's going to sell this thing and they're both going to be rich. Jonah tells her, look, this needs to be heard. It doesn't need to be sold. I could compose this. I could actually do something with this. I could reveal this song to the world, this symphony to the world. Devonshire just wants it for financial gain, and before she can try and walk off with it, Jonah hits her in the head with the shovel and she falls into the grave. He then begins to fill the hole back in, but just before he manages to cover Devonshire, her eyes open and he continues to throw dirt on top of her. Several days later, he comes back to the house and Lillian tells him that she's called him back in because there is a problem with the piano. Eventually, both her and Dickie reveal that they knew Devonshire was a wrong'un, and she was potentially going to rob them. They didn't know that he would be involved, but once he got here and his expression of gratitude and love for Nathaniel's work probably meant that he would do the thing that she wanted him to do. He tells them that he's brought the manuscript back and they can have it, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. He feels like he has been cursed already. They tell him, however, that they want him to finish the work, because once it's done, then they can actually sell it, because it would seem that Lillian has managed to get herself into some chronic debt, and this new unearthed works would actually sell for a mint, and she could live the lavish life that she always has done for the rest of her life. And so Lillian tells him, you are going to be staying here until you actually finish this symphony. And so, locked in the same room where the man he idolized so much had killed himself, he now has to write his final piece. As he begins to write, he starts having delusions, and during a dark night he actually has a conversation with Nathaniel in that room. Nathaniel advises him on how to finish his final piece, and the very next morning he declares to Lillian that he is finished. He hands Lillian the binder with all his notes and everything inside it, apart from one thing. He walks over to the piano and takes the final piece out that had always been in the back of that piano ever since her husband died. He hands it to her and she places it in the binder. It's here that she realises that she has been tricked. She has told him all along that she doesn't believe in this curse nonsense, but as soon as he tells her that she has now completed her husband's 9th symphony, she begins to worry. She walks away, she heads off upstairs, and as she does, we see a shadow following her. As she gets to the top of the stairs, the shadow is right behind her until she obviously turns around. As always, they have that shot where they turn around and the person isn't there, because when they turn back, the curse, whoever it is, has been stalking her, is now in front of her. It throws her over the balcony and she falls to her death, thus ending the curse of the 9th. Now again, not my favourite episode. I think it's good. I love Natalie Dormer in it, and Hayley Squires I've seen in a few things and I think she's good, but I don't like the concept. I don't like the aspect of the haunting kind of thing, and just the premise seems a little weak, that unless you were a huge music nerd, which I'm not when it comes to classical music, I wouldn't have known any of this thing about the curse of the 9th, or whether it's a real thing that goes around or just something that was made up for the show, but it just failed for me on that regard. And as I've said before, I don't mind supernatural stuff in certain context, but things like this just don't do it for me. If it was something like It Follows, then I can kind of get on board with it, or Smile, I think, is a great sort of paranormal franchise, but yeah, this just fell off. It really did. But I think on a second viewing, it was better. Obviously, the innuendo throughout was quite funny, and Natalie Dormer's opening line was great, but yeah, I like it, but it's not one of my favourites. Episode 6, Plodding On. So, the majority of this episode is set in a bathroom. I'm not going to do the cast list because everyone plays themselves in real life. So, I'm just going to name the people who are in the show. The episode starts in the bathroom of this party for the cast of Inside Number 9. They know it's going to be the final show, and they are all together to celebrate the greatness of this show. We see two people from episode 1 in Catherine Parkinson and Tim Key talking in the bathroom. They're talking about how they have scored some coke and they're both going to do a line in the bathroom. Tim tells Catherine that he's never done anything like this, and when he actually attempts to snort the line, he doesn't even get anywhere near it. Moments later, Amanda Abington comes in and Tim actually tells her that all the stalls are knackered, so she can't get in any of them, and he is basically just telling everyone the situation. After Amanda leaves, Tim turns around to Catherine and says, "Thank fuck for that. I'm glad Catherine Parkinson's gone." Because Catherine Parkinson and Amanda Abington get confused quite a lot because they are very similar looking. And so throughout the episode, this just keeps happening to those two characters, or people in this case. Then Anne Reid comes in and she asks if she can have some of the coke that she knows that Catherine Parkinson has. Reese then comes into the toilet and he is confronted by Robin Asquith. Robin has not actually been on the show before, but he was going to be in the On the Buses type episode that was replaced with the Lee Mack episode, where it ended up being the game show with the mind control girl. He's talking about a script that he wants to pitch to Reese, and Reese is essentially hoping that he and Steve can continue to work together after the show has ended, and that they've already started writing a script for the next thing that they're doing, a series called Plodding On, a comedy drama about police officers. Robin tells him that he hopes that maybe they can work together soon on an Inside Number 9 special about the On the Buses episode, and they can actually do like the episode that he has planned out. They run through a bit of the script that Robin's actually written, and it's a terrible 70s type script. Very kind of its era, where it's a lot of big-breasted girls and men running around after them, and a lot of innuendo and a lot of filth. However, by this point, Reese and Steve haven't actually managed to get any time together at this party. After this, we see Steve and Rosie Cavallero in the bathroom, and they are talking about the situation with Reese. It's revealed that Steve has actually got a new job. He's auditioned for this part in this Amazon series that's been commissioned about Dante's Inferno called The Divine Comedy. He's very excited about it, and it seems that he has walked this interview. He's basically just got it because he turned up for this interview. However, the way he actually ended up turning up to this interview, he had to get out of filming Inside Number 9 on the day. He was meant to be filming part of the episode Control Alt Escape, but ended up faking a seizure so that he could get out of this and he could go audition. Once he'd done the audition, however, he'd basically been given the part. So he's got this whole package where he's moving out to the States. He's going to be living between America and Canada for the next 7 years, and he's getting a full pass. Basically, they're taking his family out there. He's going to be involved in the show for as long as it lasts, and it's going to be something brand new for him. But as yet, he hasn't told Reese. Afterwards, Nick Mohammed is stood in the toilet and he is recording his own version of a podcast. As he is, Steve Pemberton walks in and he starts interviewing Steve about what's next for him, but mainly he's either doing adverts for his podcast or he's actually promoting himself. Eventually, Steve tells him about the project that he's got coming up, and he tells him obviously it's going to be The Divine Comedy. At this point, Nick was under the impression that they were actually going to be doing this pilot series, this Plodding On, that Reese has been talking about. But Steve tells him, look, I am doing things for myself now. I don't understand why Reese thinks that this is going to be commissioned, and, I'm going to do what I need to do for me. At that point, one of the stalls opens and Reese is inside. He comes out and he and Steve get into a heated argument in front of Nick Mohammed, who is continuing to do these little adverts. Eventually, Nick sees the tension between the two of them and leaves the bathroom. It's here that the two really get into it. Steve tells Reese that he believes he's held him back all these years. And Reese tells Steve that he thought he'd lost his friend on the day that Steve faked this seizure. And so he's pissed off with him, but more so, he worries what's next for both of them. If Steve's going off to Hollywood and doing this for the next 7 years, when is he ever going to see him again? Steve tells him, look, after all these years of being around you and working with you for 25 years, are we even friends anymore? And they head back out to the party. It's then that Sean Gibson comes in and tells them, hey, the party's about to show you video. They show this video of the highlights of Inside Number 9, and honestly, it's so heartwarming to actually see some of the bits from the show. During this video, however, Steve knows that he should really talk to Reese and they should really clear the air and go through this whole process, try and heal before he goes off. He gets a phone call, and just as he answers it, he has his eyes on Reese, but when he comes back, Reese is gone. He heads into the bathroom and he finds Reese in there, and he tells Reese that there's been a twist. No longer is his time in Hollywood secure because someone else has thrown their hat into the ring. It turns out that Tim Key knew about what was going on and has told his agent to get in contact with these people at Amazon. Reese and Steve kind of make up and start to think about maybe what is next for them both. Even though Reese is determined that Steve's going to go off to Hollywood. Steve tells him, no, we can do the other show. We can do Plodding On and we'll just see where it goes. And then Reese tells him, I have a different idea. There is a third option. And then we see him and Robin Asquith and Nick Mohammed and Amanda Abington and Catherine Parkinson and Tim Key and Rosie Caballero all in the show Hold On Tight, which is the BBC show that they were going to run that night instead of 3x3, which was presented by Lee Mack as the game show. And that is it. And that is the end of Inside Number 9. And I was right. The ending's fucking shocking. Really is. It really lets the show down. I'm disappointed. The 5th episode, I thought that was poor, but I kind of got it. But this one, it was nice to see all the people that were in the previous episodes doing their thing, including Mark Gatiss. He was part of it. He ended up having a phone call with Reese at one point when Reese was in the toilet. But it felt so forced and was just really frustrating. You're always expecting something from Inside Number 9 and it's going to be something that's terrifying or worrying or just... It fell flat. I didn't like it. I really didn't like it. And I wish that I did. I really wish that I did. I'm struggling for the words of how much I didn't like it because I don't want to talk too badly about the show. But I just feel like if they were going to end it in that way, they could have done it a hell of a lot better. I do hope that there are some specials and we'll cover them as probably bonus episodes on this podcast. But yeah, this was fucking shocking. Really disappointing. But anyway, I'm not going to dwell on it. What I am going to do though is I'm going to talk about some of my favourite episodes. Now, the Halloween special has always been a standout for me. I think it's such a great episode. The live aspect of it, I think, again, covering it on the night that it would have happened and watching it as a actual special, I think would have blown me away. I'd thought about watching the show a lot by that point and hadn't really bothered. But that episode was incredible. All the press that it got and just the way that they did it was phenomenal. And I cannot fault them for it. It was so good. And it really fucked with your head when you actually watched it, I imagine. It still fucks with my head now. And I've watched it a bunch of times. I still don't know how it would have been on that night. Whether the news that they were bringing through was actually the proper news that was on at the time. I don't know. I can't tell because I didn't watch it live, but I wish I had. A Quiet Night is one of those episodes that just gets played all the time. And it was the episode that they played in the show Deadline, the Halloween episode. But the first episode was good of the whole show, but the second episode really just hooked me in. It made me realise that this was something special, that this was something that was needed to be watched all the way through and enjoyed all the way through because it's such a high quality episode. I think the most famous episode is the 12 Days of Christine and just the way that plays out with Sheridan Smith's character going through that whole process is heartbreaking, but the way that they use the actual holidays to define how this woman's life was going, it was a bit like the Control-Alt Escape Room episode with just the way that they are playing with your head and making you think something is happening when actually something else is going on. It really just makes you think, and I enjoy that kind of episode where it gives you little hints but doesn't really spell everything out for you until the exact end, or even, you have to take a couple of minutes afterwards just to think about what the hell you've just watched. Absolutely incredible. The Riddle of the Sphinx with the puzzle and how to solve a cryptic crossword, as well as all the mind games around it, was beautifully shot, beautifully done, and a really clever watch. So again, one of probably the best that I've watched on TV. And then I think I'm going to end with the 3x3 episode. I know I've mentioned it a couple of times in this episode because of obviously the connection, but again, to watch that as it came out live, I did. And it was very weird to be sat watching this show and thinking, this can't be it. This can't be all of it. What the hell's going on? Why am I watching Lee Mack do this cheesy shtick and not watching Inside Number 9? but you always felt there was something, just something in the background that was just niggling away at you, just saying, nope, continue to watch this because this is Inside Number 9. And it's only right at the end when the credits roll for this show, as well as a woman's head being exploded, but the credits run for this show, and then all of a sudden it merges into the Inside Number 9 theme, and you realise what you've been watching. You've been watching half an hour of just fucking class. The season and the show and everything around it was so great. I'll forgive episode 5, but I'm not going to forgive episode 6. It was a real disappointment, and the anticlimax of it all was that they might do the on the buses type fucking show, and I could have done without it. I think they should have just done a better version of what they were going to do, show the party, do something different with it. But it is what it is now. I hope they do some specials, maybe a Christmas special, probably this year, because obviously they didn't do one last year. But if they did one this year, that'd be good. But yeah. Anyway, I'm done ranting and raving about these 2 episodes. But I hope you're all doing well out there, and I thank you for listening to me fucking going on. I apologise for that. But I promise now that whatever I watch, I'll have watched and enjoyed thoroughly, or I'll have never seen it before, and I'll just say it's good or shit then. So anyway, thank you for listening to me today, and I hope you're all doing well out there. But until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye. As always, thank you for listening to this podcast, and you could really help me and the podcast by giving a like, share, subscribe on all major platforms that you listen to podcasts on. As an independent podcaster, this will just help me exponentially when it comes to actually doing more things with this podcast. I truly do enjoy this, and I absolutely love revisiting these TV shows with you guys. So any engagement from you is always welcome, and I will try and listen to all of you when you give suggestions or just tell me what you think about the podcast. But once again, thank you for listening, and until next time, I will speak to you soon. Bye.